The massive cruise ship Celestial Haven drifted peacefully through the dark void of space, its gleaming hull reflecting the distant light of twin blue stars. Captain Zephyr stood on the bridge, his crystalline blue skin catching the soft glow of the control panels as he watched the stars slowly pass by the main viewing screen. The Calarian officer had commanded luxury vessels for over 30 years, but the Celestial Haven was his pride and joy. 50,000 passengers from 12 different alien species filled the ship's decks, all enjoying the most exclusive tour package in the galaxy. The wealthy Thraxian merchants lounged in the premium observation lounges, their golden scales shimmering as they sipped exotic drinks and discussed business deals. The intellectual Valdorian scholars gathered in the ship's vast libraries, their large heads bent over ancient texts, while their 6 arms took detailed notes. Peaceful Coran families wandered the entertainment districts, their children's laughter echoing through the corridors as they played games that had been popular across the galaxy for centuries. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring the ship's systems and plotting their course through the Andromeda Spiral. Communications Officer Thyra, a young Calarian with bright purple markings across her forehead, hummed softly as she processed routine messages from other vessels in the area. Navigation Officer Kex, a serious Valdorian with deep green skin, calculated their next jump coordinates with mathematical precision that his species was famous for. Captain Zephyr smiled as he walked among his crew. This was exactly the kind of peaceful voyage he had dreamed of when he first joined the merchant fleet as a young officer. No pirates, no political tensions, no emergency situations. Just a smooth, profitable cruise through some of the most beautiful star systems in the known galaxy. The first sign of trouble came from the sensor station. Ensign Mira, a nervous Thraxian fresh out of the academy, stared at her displays with growing concern. Her golden scales had turned a pale yellow, which among her people indicated fear or stress. "Captain," she called out, her voice trembling slightly, "I'm detecting multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace around our position." Zephyr moved quickly to her station, his experienced eyes scanning the sensor readings. 7 large vessels had appeared in a perfect formation around the Celestial Haven, effectively trapping them. The ship signatures were unfamiliar, but their weapon systems were definitely active and targeting the cruise ship. "Pirates," whispered Navigation Officer Kex, his green skin turning an even darker shade. "Those are Ravager-class dreadnoughts." The name sent a chill through everyone on the bridge. The Ravagers were the most feared pirate organization in the galaxy, led by the brutal warlord Grimlock. They specialized in attacking civilian vessels, taking prisoners for the slave markets and stripping ships of everything valuable before destroying them. No one had ever survived a Ravager attack to tell about it. The main communication system crackled to life, and a harsh voice filled the bridge. The universal translator struggled with the aggressive tone as Warlord Grimlock himself spoke. "Luxury vessel Celestial Haven, you will surrender immediately. Lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in the immediate execution of your passengers. You have 5 minutes to comply." Captain Zephyr felt his heart sink as he looked around the bridge at his terrified crew. The Celestial Haven was a civilian vessel with minimal defensive capabilities. Their security force consisted of only 200 guards armed with basic weapons, while the Ravager fleet carried thousands of heavily armed pirates. The cruise ship's shields could withstand asteroid impacts and solar radiation, but they were never designed to resist military-grade weapons. "Captain," Communications Officer Thyra said quietly, "our distress beacon is active, but the nearest Galactic Council patrol is 6 days away at maximum speed. 6 days. They would all be dead or enslaved long before any help could arrive through normal channels." Zephyr closed his eyes and tried to think of any possible solution. His passengers trusted him to keep them safe, and he was failing them completely. Then he remembered something he had heard years ago during a classified briefing at the Merchant Fleet Academy. There were rumors, whispered stories about a quarantined system in the far reaches of the galaxy, a place where a dangerous species had been isolated for their own safety and the safety of others. The Sol system, home to the creatures called humans. Most civilized species considered humans to be primitive savages from a death world, too violent and unpredictable to be allowed into galactic society. The quarantine had been in place for over 200 years, established after first contact had gone horribly wrong. The official reports claimed that humans were unstable, aggressive, and prone to violence even against their own kind. But there were other stories, unofficial ones that were never put in the historical records. Stories about human military capabilities that had terrified the first contact teams. Stories about weapons and tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Stories about creatures that had evolved on a world so dangerous that everything else in the galaxy seemed soft and weak by comparison. "Thyra," Captain Zephyr said quietly, moving to the communication station. "I need you to send a message to the Sol system." The young officer's purple markings turned white with shock. "Captain, that would violate the quarantine treaty. Contact with the human system is forbidden by galactic law. 50,000 innocent beings are about to die or be enslaved," Zephyr replied, his voice firm despite the fear in his heart. "I will break any law necessary to save them." Thyra's hands shook as she programmed the message transmitter. The signal would take several hours to reach the distant Sol system, but it was their only hope. She encoded a simple distress call with their coordinates, the nature of their situation, and a desperate plea for immediate assistance. As the message transmitted into the dark void of space, Captain Zephyr wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The humans might ignore the call completely, or worse, they might respond with the kind of violence that had gotten them quarantined in the first place. The first Ravager boarding pods began cutting through the ship's hull 20 minutes later. The invasion had begun, and all Captain Zephyr could do was hope that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something was listening and willing to help. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains of Earth, inside the heavily fortified Cheyenne Mountain Complex, warning alarms began to sound throughout the Terran Defense Grid Command Center. Lieutenant Amy Johnson stared at her monitoring station in disbelief as an impossible signal appeared on her screens. After 200 years of silence from the galaxy beyond, something was trying to communicate with Earth. The signal was weak and distorted from its long journey through space, but the translation computers were working to decode the alien language. Amy watched the words appear on her screen one by one, each line making her heart beat faster. It was a distress call from something called the Celestial Haven, requesting immediate military assistance against hostile forces. "Colonel, you need to see this right now," Amy called across the command center to her superior officer. Colonel Steve Martinez rushed to her station, his weathered face showing the stress of 30 years in military service. He read the decoded message twice before reaching for the red telephone that connected directly to the Pentagon. Within minutes, the highest levels of Earth's government were aware that first contact in 2 centuries had come in the form of a desperate cry for help. Admiral Kate Morrison arrived at Cheyenne Mountain less than 3 hours later, her transport having broken several speed records to get her there from Washington. The 50-year-old veteran of the Mars colonial wars had spent her entire career preparing for the day when humanity might return to the galactic stage. She had never expected it to begin with aliens begging for rescue. The Situation Room filled quickly, with the most important military and political leaders on Earth. President Jack Hamilton sat at the head of the table, his gray hair making him look older than his 60 years. The weight of making a decision that could affect all of humanity showed clearly on his face as he listened to the briefing. The message originated from coordinates approximately 47 light-years from Earth, Admiral Morrison explained, pointing to a holographic star map. "Our analysis indicates the distress call is genuine. Long-range sensors confirm multiple large vessels in that area, consistent with the reported pirate attack." General Luke Patterson, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, leaned forward in his chair. "Ma'am, we need to consider the political implications here. The quarantine treaty specifically forbids any contact between Earth and the galactic community. Breaking that treaty could be considered an act of war." "The quarantine was never our choice," Admiral Morrison replied firmly. "They isolated us because they were afraid of what we might become. Now they're asking for our help when their own military forces can't handle a simple pirate attack." President Hamilton studied the decoded message on his tablet, focusing on the section that mentioned civilian casualties and children among the potential victims. The moral weight of the decision pressed down on him like a physical force. America had been founded on principles of protecting the innocent and helping those in need, even at great personal cost. "What are our response capabilities, Admiral?" the President asked. "The USS Vengeance completed its final trials last month," Morrison answered. It's our most advanced stealth destroyer, equipped with the latest fusion drive systems and experimental weapons. The ship can reach the target coordinates in approximately 18 hours using our newest FTL technology. Dr. Helen Carter, the President's science advisor, looked up from her own analysis of the alien message. Sir, this could be our opportunity to demonstrate that humanity has evolved beyond the aggressive tendencies that got us quarantined. A successful rescue mission might open the door to ending our isolation. General Patterson shook his head grimly. Or it could start a war with species that have weapons and technology we can only guess at. We've been isolated for 2 centuries. We have no idea what kind of military capabilities the galactic community has developed. The debate continued for over an hour, as various officials argued the merits and dangers of intervention. Some wanted to ignore the message completely, maintaining Earth's careful isolation. Others pushed for a full fleet response that would announce humanity's return to the galaxy with overwhelming force. President Hamilton finally raised his hand for silence. The message mentions 50,000 civilians, including children. I won't have it on my conscience that we stood by and did nothing while innocents died. He turned to Admiral Morrison. You have authorization for a limited response. 1 ship, minimal crew, maximum stealth. Rescue the civilians and eliminate the pirate threat, but maintain plausible deniability about human involvement. Admiral Morrison nodded and immediately began issuing orders. The USS Vengeance would launch within 6 hours with a hand-picked crew of Earth's best military personnel. The mission parameters were clear. Save the aliens, destroy the pirates, and avoid revealing Earth's technological capabilities to the galactic community. Captain Ryan Mitchell received his orders while conducting training exercises in the asteroid belt beyond Mars. The 42-year-old Special Operations veteran had commanded the Vengeance since its commissioning, and his crew trusted him completely. When the sealed orders arrived from Earth Command, Mitchell knew immediately that everything was about to change. Lieutenant Commander Nina Torres, the ship's tactical officer, studied the mission briefings with professional interest. The 35-year-old weapons specialist had designed many of the Vengeance's experimental systems herself, and she was eager to test them against real targets. Her dark eyes showed no emotion as she calculated firing solutions for enemies she had never seen. Major Alex Carter led the ship's Marine contingent, 200 of the most elite soldiers in human history. The tough veteran of a dozen colonial conflicts had trained his troops to fight in any environment against any enemy. He spent the journey to the target coordinates reviewing everything known about alien biology and developing tactics for boarding operations in zero gravity. Dr. Sam Brooks, the ship's xenobiologist, worked frantically to analyze what little data Earth had about alien species. The brilliant scientist had spent his career studying theoretical alien life forms, never expecting to encounter real ones under such circumstances. His research would be critical for understanding their rescued passengers and any alien technology they might encounter. As the USS Vengeance accelerated toward the coordinates in the alien distress call, Captain Mitchell gathered his senior staff for a final briefing. The holographic display showed the target system with estimated positions of the pirate vessels and the civilian cruise ship. People, this is what we've trained for, Mitchell said, his voice calm and confident. We're going to show the galaxy that humanity has evolved into something they never expected. We're not the savage primitives they remember. We're the guardians that the innocent can call upon when evil threatens them. The ship's FTL drives engaged with a low hum that resonated through the hull, and Earth's most advanced warship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's hopes toward a distant star system where 50,000 aliens waited for salvation they didn't know was coming. The USS Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the target system, its advanced stealth systems immediately engaging to hide the ship from any sensors in the area. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as his crew gathered information about the situation they had traveled 47 light-years to resolve. Sensors are picking up 8 large vessels, reported Lieutenant Commander Nina Torres from the tactical station. 7 are in attack formation around what appears to be a civilian cruise ship. The 8th vessel is maintaining position approximately 50,000 kilometers away, probably the command ship. The main viewing screen showed the scene that had greeted them upon arrival. The massive cruise ship Celestial Haven hung helplessly in space, its hull scarred with blast marks and boarding pod attachment points. 7 smaller but heavily armed pirate vessels surrounded it like predators circling wounded prey. Dark scars on the cruise ship's hull showed where the pirates had cut their way inside. Dr. Sam Brooks worked frantically at the science station, analyzing the alien vessel designs and trying to understand their technology levels. Captain, the pirates are using weapons and shields that appear to be at least 50 years behind our current capabilities. Their energy signatures suggest they're still using basic fusion reactors instead of the antimatter systems we developed. What about the civilian ship? Mitchell asked, studying the elegant lines of the cruise vessel through the enhanced optical sensors. Much more advanced, Brooks replied. The cruise ship shows signs of technology that might even be superior to ours in some areas. Definitely a peaceful design, though. Minimal weapons and defensive systems. Major Alex Carter joined them on the bridge, his marine combat armor making him look like a walking tank. Sir, my teams are ready for boarding operations. We've studied the pirate ship designs and identified optimal breach points. These aliens build their ships with a lot of open space, probably for comfort rather than defense. Mitchell nodded as he continued to study the tactical situation. The pirates had made a critical error by spreading their forces across multiple vessels. Each pirate ship was individually powerful, but they had sacrificed concentrated firepower for the ability to control and loot the cruise ship more effectively. Torres, what's our weapon status? The captain asked. All systems green, sir, the tactical officer replied with a slight smile. Relativistic projectile cannons are loaded and ready. Plasma torpedo tubes are armed with our newest warheads. Point defense systems are online and tracking multiple targets. The weapons that humanity had developed during their isolation were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The relativistic projectile cannons fired dense metal slugs at a significant percentage of light speed, giving them enough kinetic energy to punch through any known shielding system. The plasma torpedoes used controlled fusion reactions to create miniature stars that could melt through the heaviest armor. Communications. Can you get me a clear channel to the pirate vessels? Mitchell ordered. Ensign Tom Wilson worked at his station for several minutes before nodding. I've broken their encryption, sir. Their communication protocols are surprisingly basic. I can patch you through to their command frequency. Before making contact, Mitchell decided to demonstrate exactly what kind of enemy the pirates were now facing. Torres, target the nearest pirate vessel. Make it count. The USS Vengeance remained completely invisible to the pirate sensors as its weapon systems locked onto their first target. The Bone Crusher, a heavily modified cargo vessel bristling with stolen military weapons, never knew what hit it. The relativistic projectile struck the ship's reactor core with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The explosion lit up the entire system as the Bone Crusher simply ceased to exist. Where a 200-meter-long pirate ship had been floating moments before, there was now only an expanding cloud of superheated plasma and metal fragments. The other pirate vessels immediately went to full alert, their sensors sweeping frantically for the source of the attack. Unknown vessel. Identify yourself immediately, came the panicked voice of a pirate communications officer over the stolen channel. The Ravager fleet demands to know who dares attack us. Mitchell waited several long seconds before responding, letting the fear build among the pirates as they realized they were facing an enemy they couldn't even see. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and cold, the tone of a professional soldier who had seen too much violence to be impressed by pirates and bullies. This is the commanding officer of the vessel that just destroyed your ship, Mitchell said. You have taken civilian hostages and are engaged in acts of piracy against innocent travelers. Release all prisoners immediately and surrender your vessels or face complete annihilation. The response came from a different voice, deeper and more arrogant than the communications officer. This is Warlord Grimlock of the Ravager fleet. I don't know what kind of coward hides behind stealth technology, but you are outnumbered 7-1. Surrender now and I might let you live as my slave. Lieutenant Commander Torres raised an eyebrow as she listened to the pirate leader's response. Sir, should I target their command ship next? Not yet, Mitchell replied. Let's see how intelligent they really are. The USS Vengeance decloaked directly above the pirate flagship, its sleek hull reflecting the light of the distant stars as it hung motionless in space. The human warship was smaller than any of the pirate vessels, but something about its design radiated deadly purpose. Every line and angle had been crafted for war, with no wasted space or unnecessary decorations. "I am Captain Ryan Mitchell of the Terran Defense Force," he announced over the open channel. "Your fleet is outgunned and outmatched. You have 30 seconds to begin releasing prisoners, or I will demonstrate why the galaxy quarantined my species." The silence that followed stretched for nearly 15 seconds as the pirates tried to process what they were seeing. The ship that had appeared above them was like nothing in their databases. Its weapons were already tracking their vessels with mechanical precision, and the energy readings from its reactor core were off their charts. Warlord Grimlock's laughter broke the silence, harsh and mocking. "Humans, the primitive savages from the quarantine zone? You expect me to fear creatures that haven't left their home system in 2 centuries? Your 30 seconds are up," Mitchell replied quietly. The second pirate ship exploded before Grimlock could finish his next insult. This time Torres had targeted the engine core, and the resulting explosion sent debris raining down on the other pirate vessels. The message was clear. Humanity had evolved far beyond what the galaxy remembered, and they had brought weapons that turned the pirates' numerical advantage into a meaningless statistic. "All vessels, attack the human ship now," Grimlock screamed over the communications channel. "Kill them all before they can destroy us." Mitchell smiled grimly as the remaining 5 pirate ships turned their weapons toward the USS Vengeance. The aliens were about to learn why Earth was called a death world, and why the creatures that evolved there made the perfect protectors for those who couldn't protect themselves. The 5 remaining pirate ships opened fire on the USS Vengeance with everything they had, filling the space around the human vessel with energy beams and explosive projectiles. Lieutenant Commander Nina Torres watched the incoming fire with professional interest as the ship's defensive systems engaged automatically. Point defense lasers swept across space, destroying incoming missiles with surgical precision, while the main shields absorbed energy weapon strikes without even flickering. "Their weapons are having no effect, Captain," Torres reported with a slight smile. "Our shields are operating at 12% capacity to stop their maximum firepower." Captain Ryan Mitchell studied the tactical display as the pirate vessels maneuvered desperately around his ship, trying to find a weakness in its defenses that simply did not exist. The gap in technology was so vast that it was like watching ancient sailing ships attacking a modern nuclear submarine. "Torres, disable their engines but leave the command sections intact," Mitchell ordered. "I want prisoners for interrogation about their slave operations." The USS Vengeance moved through the pirate formation like a predator among sheep, its weapons firing with mechanical precision. Each shot was carefully calculated to disable rather than destroy, targeting engine cores and weapon systems while leaving life support operational. The pirates found themselves completely helpless as their ships lost power and drifted uselessly in space. "Major Carter, prepare your boarding teams," Mitchell announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to pay a personal visit to Warlord Grimlock." Major Alex Carter had been waiting for this moment since the mission began. His 200 Marines represented the finest soldiers that humanity had ever produced, trained for combat in every environment, from deep space to planetary surfaces. They had studied every available piece of information about alien physiology and developed tactics specifically for fighting non-human opponents. The assault pods launched from the USS Vengeance like bullets from a gun, their armored hulls designed to punch through enemy armor and deliver troops directly into the heart of enemy vessels. Each pod carried 10 Marines equipped with combat armor that made them look like mechanical demons. Their weapon systems integrated directly into their suits. Carter's pod struck the hull of Grimlock's flagship with the force of a meteorite, cutting through the outer armor like it was made of paper. The breach charge detonated automatically, creating a perfectly round hole that led directly into the ship's main corridor. Before the alien crew could react to the intrusion, human Marines were already inside their vessel. The first group of pirates to encounter the human boarding party died before they could even raise their weapons. The Marines moved with a coordination and speed that seemed impossible to the aliens, their enhanced reflexes and combat training making them appear superhuman. Each soldier knew exactly where his teammates were positioned and could coordinate their movements without speaking a single word. Dr. Sam Brooks monitored the boarding operation from the USS Vengeance, studying the biological data that the Marines' suits were transmitting back to the ship. What he saw confirmed his worst fears about the current state of galactic civilization. The pirates showed signs of severe genetic degradation, their reflexes slow, and their physical coordination poor compared to baseline human norms. Captain, the aliens are operating at approximately 60% of normal human physical capability, Brooks reported. Centuries of peaceful civilization have weakened them considerably. They're simply not adapted for combat against opponents who evolved in a high-stress environment. The Marines advanced through the pirate ship like an unstoppable force, their training and equipment overwhelming every defense the aliens could organize. The pirates' weapons were designed for use against other galactic species with similar limitations, not against creatures that had spent millennia fighting for survival on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Carter kicked down the blast door leading to the ship's command center, his suit's servos providing him with strength far beyond normal human limits. Inside, he found Warlord Grimlock cowering behind an overturned desk with his senior officers, their golden scales pale with terror as they stared at the armored figure that had just entered their sanctuary. "You are Warlord Grimlock," Carter stated, his voice mechanically distorted by his suit's communication systems. "You are under arrest for piracy, slave trading, and crimes against civilian populations." Grimlock tried to stand up straight and maintain some dignity in the face of his capture, but his hands shook as he looked at the human Marine. Carter stood nearly 7 feet tall in his combat armor, his suit's sensors glowing red in the dim lighting of the command center. To the alien pirate, he looked like a creature from their worst nightmares. "The Galactic Council will never allow you to interfere with our operations," Grimlock said, his voice cracking with fear. "Humans are supposed to be quarantined. You have no authority here." "The only authority I recognize is the right of innocent beings to live free from fear," Carter replied. "You forfeited your rights when you chose to harm civilians." The interrogation of captured pirates revealed the full scope of their criminal organization. They had been operating in this sector for over 10 years, attacking civilian ships and selling their passengers into slavery. The Galactic Council's military forces had proven completely inadequate to stop them, lacking both the will and the capability to engage in the kind of direct action necessary to eliminate such threats. Meanwhile, other Marine teams were working to free the hostages aboard the Celestial Haven. The aliens they rescued were in various states of shock and terror, but their relief at being saved was obvious. Many of the prisoners had been aboard pirate ships for weeks or months, and some had given up hope of ever seeing their families again. Captain Zephyr was among the rescued hostages, and he requested permission to speak with the human commander personally. When he was brought aboard the USS Vengeance, the Calarian captain could barely believe what he was seeing. The human ship was clean, efficient, and obviously built by a highly advanced civilization. "Captain Mitchell," Zephyr said, his crystalline blue skin reflecting the soft lighting of the human ship's bridge. "I sent that distress call in desperation, never believing that anyone would actually respond. You saved 50,000 innocent lives today." Mitchell looked at the alien captain with respect, recognizing the courage it had taken to break galactic law in order to save his passengers. "You did the right thing, Captain. No law is more important than protecting innocent lives." The USS Vengeance had completed its mission in less than 2 hours from first engagement to final prisoner transfer. The entire Ravager fleet was either destroyed or captured, and every single civilian hostage had been rescued without injury. It was exactly the kind of professional military operation that had made humanity feared throughout the galaxy 2 centuries earlier. As the human ship prepared to depart, Captain Zephyr made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He would tell the truth about what had happened here, regardless of the political consequences. The galaxy needed to know that humanity had evolved into something far more dangerous and far more noble than their ancestors who had been quarantined so long ago. 3 days after the rescue operation, the sleek ships of the Galactic Council patrol fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates where the Celestial Haven had sent its distress call. Admiral Thixon, a proud member of the Valdorian species, commanded the response force from his flagship. The green-skinned admiral had expected to find either a pirate victory with no survivors, or at best a few scattered escape pods containing traumatized refugees. Instead, his sensors detected the Celestial Haven sitting peacefully in space, all of its passengers and crew safe aboard. Surrounding the cruise ship were the remnants of the Ravager fleet, their ships disabled but intact, with surviving pirates secured in makeshift holding cells. It was the most successful anti-piracy operation in galactic history, and Admiral Thixon had no idea how it had been accomplished. Send a message to Captain Zephyr, Thixon ordered his communications officer. I want a full report on what happened here. Captain Zephyr stood on the bridge of his rescued ship, looking out at the approaching council vessels. He had spent the last 3 days thinking about what he would say when this moment arrived. The truth would shock the galaxy and possibly end his career. But the alternative was to lie about the beings who had saved 50,000 innocent lives. Admiral Thixon, Zephyr said when the communication channel opened, I am pleased to report that all passengers and crew of the Celestial Haven are safe and unharmed. The pirate fleet has been neutralized and their surviving members are ready for transfer to council custody. How is that possible? Thixon asked, his large head tilting in confusion. Our analysis showed that the Ravager fleet had enough firepower to destroy a dozen ships like yours. What force was capable of defeating them so completely? Zephyr took a deep breath before answering. The Sol system responded to our distress call, Admiral. Humanity saved us. The silence that followed lasted for nearly a full minute as Admiral Thixon processed what he had just heard. The quarantine around the Sol system had been in place for over 2 centuries, established after first contact had revealed humans to be too dangerous for galactic society. No official contact had occurred since then, and most species preferred to pretend that humans no longer existed. That is impossible, Thixon finally replied. The quarantine specifically forbids any contact with the human system. They could not have received your message, and even if they had, they lack the technology for interstellar travel. Admiral, I have detailed sensor logs of the entire engagement, Zephyr said firmly. A single human vessel calling itself the USS Vengeance destroyed or disabled 7 pirate ships in less than 2 hours. Their technology is far beyond anything in our current databases, Dr. Sam. Brooks finished his analysis of the rescued aliens and submitted his report to Captain Mitchell 3 hours before the Council fleet arrived. The results were deeply disturbing but not entirely unexpected. Every species they had encountered showed signs of genetic and physical degradation that came from centuries of living in completely safe environments. The galactic civilization has eliminated natural selection pressures almost entirely, Brooks explained to the senior staff. They have no predators, no environmental hazards, and their medical technology prevents most diseases. As a result, they have become physically and mentally weaker with each generation. What about their military capabilities? Asked Major Carter, who was still processing the ease with which his Marines had overwhelmed the pirates. Non-existent by our standards, Brooks replied. They have powerful weapons and advanced ships, but they lack the training, reflexes, and mental toughness necessary for real combat. They have forgotten how to fight, because they have not had to fight for survival in over 1,000 years. Captain Mitchell studied the implications of this information as he prepared for departure. Humanity's isolation had been intended as a punishment, but it had actually been a gift. While the galaxy had grown soft and complacent, humans had continued to evolve and advance, driven by the constant challenges of their dangerous home world. The USS Vengeance was preparing to return to Earth when Captain Zephyr requested permission to send a message to the human vessel. Mitchell agreed to accept the communication, curious about what the alien captain wanted to say. Captain Mitchell, Zephyr began, his crystalline blue skin reflecting the lights of his bridge. I want you to know that what you did here will never be forgotten. You risked everything to save people you had never met, asking nothing in return. We did what anyone with a conscience would do, Mitchell replied. The strong have an obligation to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The galaxy has spent 2 centuries believing that humans were savage and primitive, Zephyr continued. Today you prove that humanity has evolved into something the galaxy desperately needs. We need protectors, not just politicians and bureaucrats. Mitchell considered his next words carefully, knowing that they would likely be analyzed by galactic intelligence services for years to come. Captain, humanity learned long ago that true strength comes from defending the innocent, not from conquering the weak. We have no interest in ruling the galaxy, but we will not stand by while evil preys upon the defenseless. Admiral Thixon arrived aboard the Celestial Haven 6 hours later, bringing with him a team of investigators and analysts. They spent days going through the sensor logs and interviewing passengers, trying to understand how a single human ship had accomplished what an entire council fleet could not have done. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The human vessel had appeared from nowhere. eliminated the pirate threat with surgical precision, rescued all hostages without a single casualty, and disappeared back into space before the Council forces could arrive. Their weapons technology was at least 50 years ahead of current galactic standards, and their tactical capabilities were beyond anything in the historical records. "Sir," the lead investigator reported to Admiral Thixon, "we have confirmed Captain Zephyr's account in every detail. The humans who responded to the distress call demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our current understanding. They operated with a level of professionalism and efficiency that our own forces cannot match." Admiral Thixon faced an impossible decision. He could file a standard report claiming that the pirates had been defeated by unknown alien forces, maintaining the fiction that humans remained safely quarantined. Alternatively, he could tell the truth and force the Galactic Council to confront the reality that humanity had become something far beyond their expectations. Captain Zephyr made the decision for him. When the official inquiry began, the Calarian captain testified truthfully about everything that had happened. He described the human rescue operation in detail, praising their honor, their technology, and their unwavering commitment to protecting innocent lives. "The price of our salvation was revealing the truth about humanity," Zephyr told the inquiry panel. "They risked their own safety and secrecy to save 50,000 beings they had never met. The galaxy needs to know that Earth has evolved beyond our fears into something we desperately need." The report that Admiral Thixon eventually filed with the Galactic Council contained a single recommendation that would change the course of history. He formally requested that the quarantine around the Sol system be lifted and that official contact be established with the human government. The galaxy had spent 2 centuries fearing creatures that had become its perfect protectors. As the USS Vengeance returned to Earth, Captain Mitchell knew that their mission had accomplished far more than a simple rescue operation. They had announced humanity's return to the galactic stage not as conquerors or destroyers, but as guardians of the innocent and defenders of the helpless. The quarantine era was ending, and humanity was about to reclaim its rightful place among the stars.